The drummer relaxes and waits between shows for his cinnamon girl. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
All right.
Had
Take it
to
easy.
pick up Dead Possum number 7 this morning.
Wow.
You'd think they'd learn, but they don't. So, and the great thing was something I've never seen before. I actually caught Mojo, jumped to the top of the fence, flipped the possum on the top of the fence to Luna, who caught it and killed it.
That's that's teamwork, man.
I wish I had it on video. It was amazing. So
That's kind of like playing doubles in tennis or
yeah.
ping pong or something. That's total teamwork. Good for
And
them.
and the nice thing is for her, Luna has no hops whatsoever. Like she can't jump whatsoever, but he can jump. It's an 8 foot high fence, and he just jumps right to the top of it. So she's
Oh,
like,
to be
Thank you
young.
very much." Exactly.
On the
Oh,
same note, I think I told you how my backyard is a bit of a wildlife utopia with deer, um, rabbits,
oh
squirrels,
no, nice. Yeah.
chipmunks, um, foxes, um, and I mean it's and just a million different birds because there's really no predators around here, like in the direct vicinity, no cats or dogs. So all this stuff just goes crazy right in this little area. However, I think that is going to change as of today because this morning I was looking out in the backyard and this fox goes trotting by like 10 feet from me with a big rabbit in his mouth because there were some rabbits living under my deck. I have a feeling they're not going to be living under that deck much longer.
Nope.
I mean,
Maybe.
the rabbit was, foxes aren't that big.
Yeah.
They're, but beautiful little creatures. And I'm telling you, the rabbit it had in its mouth was like half the size of the fox. It was really quite a sight.
Yeah, Luna caught one of those once at a park. I don't know how this big rabbit got in there, but it did, and she got it. Yeah, so when she and I come to visit you one day, that'll help clear up a lot of your backyard issues. But yeah, no, that's cool. It's cool to like just watch nature take its course like that.
Oh, I love it. And I live right in the middle of a pretty, urban area too.
That's
But
why I'm surprised. Yeah,
yeah, we're right on the neighborhood I live in is called Edgewild. I mean, boy, they're
yeah,
clever because it's right on the edge of
yeah.
this big green belt, and that's where everything comes from. So that's why, like, I'm no joke, like probably a deer or two every few days right in my backyard.
That's probably a little safer than when you had the bear on your front porch at your old
Yeah,
place.
yeah, haven't seen any bear yet or anything that could kick my ass
Yeah,
so far. Although I'm sure a fox could, you know, do a little damage to me if it was cornered or something.
but otherwise it would just run away.
Yeah, more than likely, yeah.
I did see a video on Facebook of an alligator basically ringing the doorbell of some house in Florida. Can you imagine opening the door and there's like a 10-foot alligator right at your
I
front door?
I can't imagine. In fact,
It's not for me. So, musically speaking, have you seen that there is a biopic for Springsteen coming out?
yes. Color me not impressed. I could
Yes,
give two fucks about that.
I think it's a bad idea. I don't like them to begin with, as you know, and now you're messing with someone I really like. So, uh,
Yeah, it was inevitable. Got superstars who get to that level, not only commercially but critically, and who have that sort of longevity. It seems like there's going to be a biopic eventually, no matter who it is. Once they get to that level, it seems like okay, and now here's another dumb Dylan biopic, or now dumb one with Springsteen from I don't even know who's directing it or anything about it. I just know that I have no interest in it.
and neither do I. I will say the one only thing I'll say in its defense that makes it even like possibly interesting is that it's about a specific thing. It's about the making of Nebraska. Uh,
Well,
it-
that kind of piques my interest. I,
yeah,
I had no
so
idea. I figured it would
that
just be another typical, start with Bruce in Steel Mill and
right,
his rise from the bedroom in Asbury Park or wherever, Freehold, New Jersey, and then to his mammoth
right.
success. So So it does like drill down into the making of Nebraska. That's kind of interesting.
It's based on a book written by Warren Zanes, who was in the Del Fuegos, and it's called "Deliver Me from Nowhere," which is the line from one of the songs on Nebraska. And he talks. I'm interested in reading the book. I'm not interested in seeing the movie, but he talks about how like it's so interesting that Springsteen made Nebraska around the same time as Born in the USA.
Hmm.
And that it was really that he wanted it was a sort of escape, so he wouldn't be like the bandana wearing, muscle, pumping, arena guy, that he could just be sort of a ghost, you know.
Well, my understanding is that um, it was more of a reaction to his mainstream success that came with The River and the big top 40 hit with Hungry Heart and all that.
Yep.
And it was his record after The River, and it was still before Born in the
Yeah, it was
USA.
in the middle. Yeah.
And some of the songs were being worked out in demo form, like the title cut "Born in the USA," which the solo acoustic version is just such a cool song. I like the song anyway, but that solo version, which we saw when we saw Bruce play by himself at the
Yeah.
Berkeley Community Theater on the Ghost of Tom Joad tour. That's such a cool version. But that's my understanding is that because he hadn't really become the muscle bound bandana wearing
Yeah,
guy
it,
at that
it, it was a
point.
year or two ahead of that, but
Yeah.
it was tracking along those lines. So, and
Which
but
and sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but here's the good news, by the way, speaking of that version of that song,
Uh-huh.
is did you hear about tracks two?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Like 14
Seven albums.
LPs. Is
Yeah.
it seven?
Seven. Yeah.
Yeah.
All unreleased songs. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Great. You
yeah,
know,
you'll be
I mean,
buying it.
no, I won't. I won't.
No?
I'm not that honestly, I'm not that interested in Bruce these days. I still like and appreciate and respect him and all the great records he made in the past. But and so maybe there's some great stuff because all of
That's the
this
thing. Yeah.
is older stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything by him that has really piqued my interest for decades at this point.
Same, absolutely. I'm interested in this because it's all old stuff. Yeah.
But isn't a big chunk of it like shelved full length shelved records from like the last 10 years
See, I don't
or
know. I don't know if that's the case. I have no interest. But if it's got songs like, do you know the song "If I Was the Priest"?
I do not.
Okay, it's on a lot of the early bootlegs, but he never released it because he wasn't comfortable releasing it. And it's a pretty cool song. There's a lot of stuff like that, or like "Rendezvous," which
Hmm.
he didn't record himself. And so I know of a lot of songs that could be on it. I don't know what's on it. So if
Yeah.
it's the stuff I'm talking about, I'm definitely interested. If it's the stuff you just mentioned, I'm not. So
Yeah,
okay,
that was my understanding. It was more recent stuff. Maybe some of it, like an LP or two, will go back to his golden era. I think we could agree the golden era was probably, from Greetings to really to Nebraska. Really.
yeah, yeah.
Would I mean, as much as I like Born in the USA or even Tunnel of Love, that's that and Ghost of Tom Joad actually I love a lot. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. I think after that, I don't know. Is there any really killer Bruce record after Ghost of Tom Joad?
No, Ghost Town Joe was the last one. I did like. I don't think it's a great record, but Kim and I went to see the Pete Seeger sessions when he did that stuff live, and that was
Yeah.
fun. I enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's a great album, but I did enjoy the concert.
Hmm.
Um, I have mixed feelings about Born in the USA. What I like in Born in the USA, I really like stuff like Downbound Train. But I've
The
heard.
Ambitions covered that, by the way.
Oh, there we go. That must be where I heard it first.
And we also did I bought this really lengthy version of I'm on Fire. It's because those songs were easy to play,
Yeah.
and two of the three members of the Ambitions had really just started playing. So that's why we ended up doing those and like some Joy Division songs and some Ramones songs
That
because they were so easy to play.
Yeah, that's punk. You weren't going to start off doing prog rock, you know?
No, we weren't. So about that Pete Seeger
Yeah,
Sessions tour. When you saw that, did he just play that stuff, or did he do like one set of traditional Bruce songs and then, after the set of Pete Seeger songs, or how did that work?
That's what I'm trying to remember. Kim and I went, and it was an outdoor place, and we actually had separate tickets. We had one for general admission, which is near the stage, and then one up in the cheap seats. And I was very gallant, and I gave her the general admission ticket, and she got to be down on the floor near the stage. I
Oh, look at
just want
you.
to point that out, sort of pat myself on
What
the
a
back.
gentleman.
I definitely remember the Pete Seeger stuff because there were so many people on stage. I can't remember. And part of the problem is I've seen Bruce many times, so like memory is sort of, blur together.
Hmm.
I'm unfortunately I can't remember. I think he did a separate set of Bruce stuff, but more sort of low key, so it wasn't too jarring,
Hmm.
you know. But I just don't remember. But Nebraska is one of my favorite Bruce songs, which is Atlantic City. I love that song.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the live version from the live box set 75 to 85,
Yeah, yeah,
that's a really cool version of that song. It's full band version. You
yeah.
you've heard that,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
As
I
a
like
matter,
that as well.
that was a really good live collection.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, that 75 to 85 coincidentally coincides with what we just called out
yeah, yeah,
as his
yeah.
prime golden era. Um, so speaking of live music, I've got something on the calendar this week. I'm going down to St. Louis Thursday night to see this band from Australia who I like a lot called Tropical Fuck Storm, which kind of a silly name.
I don't know
I
them.
granted, um, pretty great stuff. They've been around, I think, since about 2016, 2017. Their fourth record is coming out like within the next couple weeks. I think they have a live record or two out as well. But anyway, three girls and a guy. Two of them came out of the ashes of another Australian band called the Drones, who I wasn't really familiar with. I have a buddy who was really into them, but I never really heard them, so I had only heard of them. And once they broke up, um, two of them formed Tropical Fuckstorm, and quite interesting stuff. It's very edgy. Like I saw them once in Seattle, and it was quite a live show. I mean, they really, I know it's sort of like a dumb phrase, but they really bring it. I mean, they were really good live, and I'm quite excited to see them. And there's still occasionally good live experiences for old farts like us, where this is at a relatively small place. It's called the Off Broadway in St. Louis. I think it's like a kind of an old school theater where with general admission seating probably won't be very crowded or uncomfortable. Tickets were with service charge and everything less than $25. Um,
And how long is the drive?
it's like 2 hours and change. So
Yeah.
say 2.5 hours, staying at a little Airbnb not far from the venue, $63 a night. So it's like, wow, in the Midwest, I mean, everything is less expensive. And
I
it's
should,
cool and
I should
easy to
have,
deal with.
I should have quit my job years ago.
Well, you can do that, and
Yeah.
you really can do that
Yeah.
if as long as you're fine with living in the middle of bumfuck Egypt.
It is interesting. It was an interesting choice you made, and I think it was the right one in retrospect. So,
I think so. It's been, well over a year and a half now,
yeah,
and I still don't regret it. Um, it was certainly a trade-off, and the longer I live here, away from my old life, my old friends and family and what have you, those trade-offs become more pronounced.
yeah,
You know, I I'm never going to have the same sort of circle like that of friends and family around me. It's just you just don't develop that when you're pushing 60 in a
right,
place you don't know anyone. I mean, it
yeah,
just doesn't happen. It's not
yeah,
like when you're in your 20s and you're going to bars and parties and what have you, and
Yeah.
everybody is still, formulating as an adult.
Yeah.
So it's the trade-offs are interesting, but not having to work just trumps everything. It
Yeah.
really does. I mean,
Well, and I was thinking of you because I was watching the Red Sox the last few days, and first they were playing in Seattle, so I was thinking of you there, and then
uh,
after that they went to San Francisco, and we're
yeah,
playing there, and so of course I was thinking of you, and I was also just watching, and the parks are so beautiful, and
yeah,
the view
yeah,
from is just incredible,
yeah,
and I was like, and I also of course used to live in San Fran when we were both there, and I do miss that. I don't miss San Francisco. I don't think I'd want to move back, but I do miss visually. It was an incredible city to live in.
yeah.
It was
I
just
mean, it's
beautiful.
it's really unique for this country. The architecture and everything, the layout of the city, the hills and everything, the Victorian houses.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's it's European in that way, and it
Yeah.
really, it stands out amongst all of the other U.S. cities for the most part. Can you think of
Yeah.
any other one that comes close to it? Maybe
Coming,
Boston?
well, no, architecture wise, actually, it'd be New Orleans. New
Oh,
Orleans
okay.
has a lot of cool
Lots of
art.
Victorians.
Yeah, but not
Okay.
but doesn't have that height that San Francisco has. So you can't get that look. And I loved going to the top of Fillmore and just looking out to the bay and seeing the cars going this way and the boats going that way. I loved walking across the bridge. I loved hanging out at the Palace of Fine Arts. I just loved all the again, just visual. It was the only city where you felt like you were high when you weren't even high, you know? And,
It's truly unique, no
but
doubt.
when I left your rent controlled apartment, I knew I was never going to be able to move back.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Michelle and I pretty much, or at least, yeah, it seemed like the same thing when we left.
yeah,
Although at that point, that was like what, 96. Um, it the whole internet.com thing hadn't really fully gone crazy at that point. So
no,
the cost of living there at that point still hadn't exploded
yeah.
like it did like literally the 3 4 years after that. So I don't know if we really were looking at it like, oh, we could never afford to live back here.
But I knew I did,
Yeah.
and so when I left, it was either 900 or 950 a month.
Ooh,
And
ooh.
remember, this is a big two bedroom
Oh,
in the
I
marina,
remember it very well, of course.
and I would say now it's going for at least 4,000 a month and probably
Probably.
five. You
Yeah.
know,
Just insane. If yeah, yeah. Although yeah, it's hard to say. You could look it up on Redfin or
yeah,
something,
I
but
will at some point. Yeah,
like one of the first places I lived in San Francisco, I've since looked it up on Redfin, and somebody bought it and totally redid it and sold it for like a couple $1 million, just the one flat, and there was like 4 or 5 flats um in the old Victorian house. So I think chances are somebody probably did, the
that
owner
makes
probably
sense.
did the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
Is no longer renting it out to,
yeah,
people in their mid
just scrubby
20s.
people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
work the hollow cow. Yeah,
And
so,
even at that point, we when we started renting it, it was $800
yeah,
a month, and that even then it was a total steal. You
yeah,
you remember? I mean,
yeah,
San
yeah.
Francisco was still somewhat expensive
Yeah, no, and that's
even
why
back then.
when you guys offered it to me, I jumped on it because that was a great deal. I had to get a roommate because I was working at the deli, but
Yeah,
even with Tracy there, it was great, and it was a great apartment for roommates because the bedrooms were so far apart from each other
yeah,
that that it was easy. Like we never had issues, and I had the best commute to work in the world. I was
yes.
just walk out the front door, walk across the street, and I was there.
Yeah,
So
you could almost like just like literally trip out your front door and
yes,
stumble and you're at work.
yeah.
How long did you live in San Francisco after we left? Was that like a year or two?
A year. I think that was it. Because one of the things was, so you had gone, and that was part of it. I definitely missed having you there, but it was also I decided, I said, what the fuck am I doing living in California, freezing my ass off, and so I moved to SoCal.
Yeah, as Mark Twain says, the coldest, what is it? The coldest winter I ever spent was a June in San
Was the
Francisco.
summer I spent in San
Yeah, yeah,
Francisco.
yeah,
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 so
yeah.
yeah.
That's
No,
funny.
and I moved to Santa Monica, and Andre and I
That's
moved in
right.
together. So
Yeah.
and there the opposite. We were 5 blocks from the beach, but the
Uh-huh.
place was the size of a shoebox, and it was well over 2,000 a month. So, um, so it's just funny how things work, how fate takes you, like where you end up. If I told you when you were living in San Francisco, one day you'll be living in Peoria, I think
God.
you would have said, I don't think so.
And never in a million years would I have thought that, even living in the Midwest, let
Yeah.
alone Peoria. And in fact, I didn't th ever even think about it until probably it was probably about a week before I bought my place out here that I thought about it. It happened that quickly once I got
Wow.
the idea. I mean, that's no joke.
No,
It
I
was,
believe that. That's
it,
how I've always lived my life like that.
yeah.
I did the same thing with New Orleans. So
It kind of aligns with that figure of speech, shit or get off the pot. Um, life's too short to fuck around and him and ha and come up with reasons for not doing something.
I,
So why not go with your gut if you have something, even if it fails miserably and you change your mind later on down the road, why not just go for it and try something?
yeah,
Isn't that what it's all about? We're here
yeah,
for such a short amount of time, and especially as we get older and older and the window is getting shorter and shorter. That was one of the things that played into my move because everybody I told was like, "You're doing what? You're going where? You why?" Until I explained it to him, just like when I emailed you
yeah.
when I was on my road trip out here initially to look at the house after I bought it.
I
You
was I was
you
hoping you were
said
moving
like,
here,
"What?"
but
Yeah, well, I remember you said something along the lines of like, "Yeah, I thought you're doing what?
yeah,
Like, are you nuts?" And
yeah,
then once I explained it to you, you were like, "Oh, okay, it makes
yeah,
sense."
yeah. Because you couldn't be doing this if you were still in Issaquah.
No, no, not at all. I'd still
Yeah,
be working some soul-sucking corporate shit job,
yeah.
um, and for
No offense, T-Mobile.
T-Mobile can suck my ass, and every
Would you
other
stop with
big
the
corporation.
profanity?
All right, Rod. I just got done playing ping pong, in fact. Um, yeah, so anyway, it's just it's interesting. I
And
mean,
it,
you've lived since I've known you, if I remember correctly, so San Francisco, SoCal, um, back to Boston, I believe, New Orleans, Austin. Have I missed anywhere?
no, and before that, it was also New York,
Oh,
Sarasota,
that's right. That's right.
Cleveland for a few months before I moved to San Francisco. So I spent a little time in the Midwest as well. But yeah, and also frequently back to Boston. Like I'd go back to Boston for a year or two, and then move again,
Right.
then back to Boston, and then move again.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
so, and the
So,
truth is, I'd be happy to live there again. I don't miss winter, but I do like Boston. I do like living there. So,
so, um, which brings up something I wanted to ask you about. So, you used to, and you've been very forthcoming about, the gambling problems you used to have, and
they're going to talk about my worldwide fame and the numerous famous girlfriends I've had. But go ahead.
well, that too. Um, and drug problems or what have you.
Yeah.
So at the height, when you say you had a gambling problem, like what kind of dollars are we talking about? Like, was this the type of money that it was, if you lost, it would leave you penniless? I mean, it was and you don't have to talk about it if you
Yeah.
don't want to, but
No.
I've never actually gotten the details on how far into that stuff you were.
And so the truth is, it's when it affects your lifestyle is when it's serious. Like this is a problem. Like let's say you went like tonight, you bet I don't know $2,000 on a whatever, okay, and you lost. Like you'd be disappointed, upset, frustrated, whatever, but it wouldn't affect your life at all.
No,
Okay, for
it
you to
wouldn't.
affect your life, you'd have to make a serious bet.
Yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
so when I was working at your brokers and I was making $125,000 a year. Okay.
Working where?
I was a broker on Wall Street.
No, but where were you working?
Euro brokers.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something burgers. I'm
Oh
like, what?
no, yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
and then
they found this guy flipping burgers and he turned into this Wall Street genius.
yes, no.
Okay. Anyway, go
So
ahead. Sorry.
it's no, it's all right. So I was making quite a bit of money for I was, I don't know, 26, 27, but I was certainly spending, money on drugs, but also like, but gambling, and to the point where like living paycheck to paycheck, which is crazy for how much money now that I was making. And even I left Euro Brokers because I was in debt and because another company would give me an advance if I went and worked there.
And did you need that advance to
Yeah, to
support
pay
your
off stuff.
gambling habit?
To pay off what I'd already lost.
Wow.
And that was a big mistake because I was very successful where I was, and that place just wasn't as good. And it was started it quickly started the end of my career. So I went to one last place and then I was done. And I definitely, and I regret so much about New York. I regret my behavior while I was there. I was not a good person. That's a period of my life I really wish I could, change, flip around, but unfortunately, it's all in the past. It's not something that ever goes away from my head. It's something I do think about. And in the same way, think about like anyone I've ever mistreated or whatever.
So, were you dealing with bookies and that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah, because that
And
was way
and
before legalized gambling. So
right, right. And so there would be somebody who was known as a bookie throughout your office, and like all of you guys who were into gambling would do all your betting through like a single bookie, or you had a couple go-to guys. Is that how that worked?
the guy, my contact guy, actually bartended in a bar called the Tall Ships that was in the World Trade Center, and that's where I worked.
Oh, your office was in
Yeah,
the trade center. Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. And so I actually got an email about 6 months or a year after 9/11 from one of the guys I used to work with. And actually not a guy I was particularly close with, but Billy sent me this long email that described exactly what it was like being there that day and trying to get out of the building and all.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I didn't save that email. It was on an old computer or something, but I really wish I still had that email because it was unbelievable to read. Um, so yeah, so I would have been there.
Right. Had you
Um,
continued to work
yeah.
with them or
Oh,
and stay in New York and work in that business. So
yeah.
so what was it that so going back to the bookie thing, so was it the type of bookie that if you didn't have the funds to cover a bet that your safety was in jeopardy?
Yeah. So first of all, one time I had to actually sell like or gave him my TV and my surround sound just
No
because
shit.
yeah, because I owed money and couldn't pay it off.
It's,
And
oh
then
my God, that's like hawking stuff,
yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Wow.
And then another time he called and he was like, you got to come with some money. I said, I don't have any. And he's like, you got to come up with something. I said, look, come on over. They can come over and break my legs. I said, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't have anything. You can't get, blood from a stone. Like,
Uh-huh. So you were really at your absolute lowest. And
oh
if
yeah,
you're to the point you're like, come on over,
yeah,
and
yeah,
break my legs.
yeah. So
Jesus. Uh,
there was one night in Atlantic City. I spent the whole night in Atlantic City doing blow and playing mainly blackjack and roulette as well. I ended up winning $35,000. That money was gone like in a week.
because of gambling.
Yeah. So,
So yeah, that whole cliche about somebody who wins the lottery or wins a big bet of some sort, instead of like hanging on to the money and doing something smart with it, basically it all gets pissed away by continuing to gamble
because you're
and
doing it
looking for that high.
the rush, yeah.
Yeah.
And see, the thing is about gambling addiction is a lot of ways worse than a coke addiction or alcohol or heroin or whatever, because you think, okay, if I can just win this bet, I'll be back in the clear, and then I will never bet again. So
Yeah.
you're really chasing your own tail
Yeah.
in a way you're not doing it with heroin. You're saying, I just want to like forget
I
about
just want to
everything,
not be sick.
yeah. So, or again, you're doing it because I just want to, fade out, you know.
Uh-huh.
So it's very different in that way. So and I talked before about the drugs, about when we talked about being in bands, like gambling wouldn't have been an issue if I was in a band because I've been too busy being in the band.
Uh-huh.
But drugs and alcohol, like that, that I would not have done well in that life. So
Yeah, when you're looking for something to fill all the time when you're
yeah,
out on the road. And
yeah.
so what kind of bets, like what was a typical bet, like t 2 grand on like an NBA game or something like that?
Yeah, it would be like it would be more like 3 or 4 bets that totaled up to that.
Uh-huh.
So it'd be like, okay, give me a $200 parlay on this, and give me $200 teaser here, and give me $100 there. So
Did you ever have to seek any help or counseling?
yeah, and I didn't find that helpful. I did see a therapist briefly. I did go to rehab, although I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks and I left after one.
Uh-huh.
I did go to. I remember I went to. This is ridiculous. I went to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting one time, and a guy was talking about how he was addicted to scratch tickets. And like I shouldn't like be on my high horse, but about anything concerning like what I did and all the things that I've done and all is ridiculous. But the fact that the guy was addicted to scratch tickets, I just couldn't take it. I was like that's so pathetic. Like even though again, who am I to say that? But I remember that I was like, okay, I'm out of here.
Pathetic because they were for such a nominal amount of money. Like,
Yeah, and but I remember when I lived in Bedford, which is an Italian sort of low rent area in Boston, or was then, it's nicer now. But I remember I'd go to the local store to get like my milk, newspaper, whatever, and I'd always be in line with a bunch of people getting scratchers, the lottery
right.
tickets, and they wouldn't get out of line. They'd scratch them at the front,
Uh,
and then like just get,
get
more
more.
tickets. And I'm like, I just want to get my milk and my newspaper and my, coffee or whatever, get the hell out of here. It drove me crazy.
That's
So
such a fool's game,
yeah.
lottery tickets. Um, so so
So
what was it?
have you ever bought a Powerball ticket or Mega Millions or
Um, I can honestly say, much like I wear never being involved in any sort of social media ever,
yeah.
like since the beginning of all of that, I
Oh,
wear that like a badge of honor. I also wear this as a badge of honor. I've never in my life ever bought a lottery ticket.
okay.
And, my chances of winning are just as good almost as people who buy them every day. And of course, somebody's got to win, but I don't know. It's always just seemed sort of foolish to me. Like literally just like, oh, here, I'm going to throw away a few bucks,
And
you
have you
know?
ever been in a casino?
Yeah, yeah. And I enjoy blackjack,
Yeah.
for sure. Like I having some beers and playing blackjack with friends, at the same table. I think that's a blast. I've never gotten into it enough that I've ever lost serious money. A couple $100 is the
Yeah.
most I've ever lost. Gone to plenty of casinos. Like when I lived in San Francisco, we would do these work outings up in Lake Tahoe, where our boss would take us all up there, and we had this great place to stay, and we'd spend a couple days just in the casinos having fun,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a blast. And I can understand how people get really wrapped up in that, but it really is just such a fool's game. You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to make money
Yeah.
doing that.
The house always wins. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it always does. And the psychology associated with that sort of thing, and you win a little bit, and instead of like getting the hell out of Dodge with your winnings, it's like, oh, I'm going to win more. I'm going to turn
Yeah.
it into more,
Yeah.
and that's why the house always wins.
Yeah. So if you can be the house, it's a good game.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
So what was it that finally allowed you to, close the book on that, so to speak?
It's funny because I don't know because I haven't done blow in I don't know, 30 years,
Uh-huh.
over 30 years, and I used to do it every single day.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
like all day, every day.
like yeah, or like not all day, but like periodically throughout the day. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and
That's intense.
so that's been and I don't remember any one thing that caused that. And even with the gambling, when I was working at a company here before I started my own business, there were a few of us from different departments all would get together like every other Tuesday night to play Texas Hold'em. We do like a little poker tournament, and we just do a $20 buy-in. And then if you wanted, you could do another buy-in. So like the most you were possibly going to lose was like $60. And I would play with them, and I would play with them mainly just because I enjoyed like the camaraderie. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
and I'd hear about other things going on in other departments, which I found very helpful to know. And so, and I found it was what I was pleased with was it didn't spur me. It didn't make me want to, oh, now I want to go, here, like, go find a casino or go find a card room and play or whatever. It was really, it was just, just fun, Same thing like when I do fantasy football every year and it's, $120 or whatever for the whole year, and it's just fun. And I know you poo-poo that and wear a badge of honor about not ever doing fantasy sports, but as I started to point out to you one time, the same thing we do with the hockey playoffs is there is no difference. You're doing it to make the games interesting.
Um, I don't know. Yeah. Um, I don't know. There's just something so insanely dorky about living vicariously through go to the level of like, oh well, I'm trading this player for this player, and this player gained 220 yards this week, so my team won. There's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way, and maybe I shouldn't even say anything since I've never actually participated, but it just seems really, really
I was
lame to
doing it
me.
with my brother and my dad in fantasy baseball back when fantasy baseball first started. Like we were doing it back in the 70s, like really,
That long ago,
yeah,
huh?
we would actually you would bid on players, you would put it in an envelope and you'd mail it to the commissioner in Michigan, and he get
That's
everyone
funny.
and have to go through it because there was no computers, there was no,
Yeah.
and so but no, but I definitely enjoy it. And I enjoy getting together for the draft to do it.
So,
But
so
also
you
you're
don't,
talking about someone living vicariously through someone. You're talking about a guy who used to play D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. Talking about living
yeah,
vicariously through someone, so
but and I was never into that, so I
yeah.
don't know much about it. But wasn't there a certain amount of creativity to D&D? You're building some sort of universe, and it wasn't just following like some set in stone rules. Wasn't
Yeah,
there that
yeah,
aspect to it?
yep. In particular, if you were the game master, if you were the guy running the game, yes, in particular. But I just like games. I've always enjoyed games. So I've always enjoyed,
Clearly.
yeah. But I mean, I've always enjoyed Monopoly or Risk or we had a game we were playing. We had a game called Organized Crime. That was a great game. But I love playing Capture the Flag. I love just like playing ping pong with you or shooting pool or bowling. I don't see any difference between any of it. You know.
Um, but the games that you're actually an active participant in are much different than something like fantasy football.
It's yeah, but it's still I don't know. I like watching football and it just augments, the
Yeah.
and so in particular, like okay, in the Patriots aren't playing, but it's Tampa Bay and I've got the receiver and the quarterback on Tampa Bay and they're playing Seattle and I've got a running back on Seattle. So like okay, so when those guys are on the field, then I'm particularly watching them.
So
Uh,
essentially, then it allows you to have a horse in the
Yeah,
race.
exactly. And again, like I said, just like what we do with the hockey playoffs. Otherwise, I wouldn't care if it's Edmonton or the Rangers or Dallas or whoever.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know.
But those are really hands off. It's like we make our picks at the beginning of the season or the
Yeah,
beginning of the playoffs, and that's
yeah,
pretty much it. And,
yeah, yeah. No,
um,
it's just a very stripped down version. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But
there's not a
but
lot of
no,
engagement.
no. As a matter of fact, one of the things I don't like about the league I'm in is there's not a lot of trades. And people pretty much get their guys and they just stick with them. But I'd rather have, for me, like the wheeling and dealing is part of it. That's what I'm a great Monopoly player. I love the wheeling and dealing part of that. So
Um, so going back to gambling,
yeah.
um,